Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to our BBC Apprenticeships webinar looking at the production scheme that opened for application just yesterday. Welcome, welcome all. Whilst we're letting some people come into the room, I'm just going to play a BBC apprenticeship video.
Every year, the BBC offers hundreds of apprenticeship opportunities.
From the production teams that bring creative ideas to life,
to the tech teams that code BBC iPlayer and BBC Sounds,
and engineers that keep our broadcasts on air.
From the journalists getting to the heart of the stories that matter the most,
to the operations team that make the business of the BBC function and continue to thrive.
and no, this isn't an unpaid internship situation. You actually get a really competitive salary.
did we say that you can get an accredited qualification from the UK's top learning providers?
And you don't have to pay for it, but you do have to study, like actually study.
This isn't just a London thing either. We're in Cardiff,
Glasgow,
Blackburn,
Newcastle!
Bristol, Tees,
Leeds,
Birmingham,
Salford!
Tunbridge Wells,
and that's not even all of our locations.
And it's not just about the work. Our staff networks and apprentice communities are always growing to make you feel like you can bring your authentic self to the BBC.
This really is just the beginning.
Sound good? Find out more here.
And you will get to find out more here with our fabulous panel. We've got a bumper panel of people on our webinar this evening. So my name is Alison. Hello, I am the Early Careers Outreach Specialist. But we also have Nicola on the line. Hi, Nicola, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Alison. Hi, everybody.
Cool. And then we have Pamela, who's also the scheme specialist on this scheme. Hi, Pam, how are you?
Hi, Alison. Hi, everybody. Lovely to see you all.
Cool. Then we've got Vic, who is the schemes advisor for the production schemes. Hey, Vic, how are you?
Hi, Alison. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Cool. And then we have Rebecca, who works in the talent acquisition team, the recruitment team. So who is part of the team that looks at all the applications that come through. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Hi, Alison. I'm very well, thank you. It's been very busy getting the production roles live. We're here now, so excited to be here.
And waiting for all those applications. And then we've got our apprentice stars. So we've got Izzy, who started last year in 2024. Hey, Izzy, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Cool. And then we've got Kaylin. Hello, Kaylin. You started this year?
Hey, Alison.
How are you? And then we've got Pear. Hello, Pear. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing grand.
Cool. And then we've got Sophia, who also started this year. How are you, Sophia?
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Alison.
Excellent. So you have all these experts, people who are either managing the schemes, working on the schemes, working through the recruitment process, and then apprentice stars. So please do submit your questions. We also have some people in the background who are camera off who are going to be working through the questions, answering your questions, and then we will ask and answer some questions on air towards the end. So if you have any questions about the production scheme, this is the time to ask them. You've got the experts here. Please submit your questions. So before we get into all things production apprenticeship at the BBC, I just want to give you some facts and figures about the BBC and about the content we put out, which actually is production, with the one exception of news. So to kick off, we have 8 UK television services on the BBC. I know them as channels because I'm old-fashioned like that. But we have, for example, BBC One, where we started, BBC Two, BBC Three and Four. And then we have CBeebies, CBBC, the News Channel, and BBC Parliament. We then have 22 nations and regional TV services. So if you think of the main news bulletins at breakfast, the 1, the 6 and the 10, we then have a version for wherever you are in the UK. So for example, in Scotland, which is where Pamela is, we've got BBC Scotland. In Wales, which is where Nicola is, we've got BBC Wales. Then we've got BBC Northern Ireland, and then we have the regional services in England. So I'm based in the West Midlands. So for me, it is Midlands Today. And then over on the radio side of things, we've got 10 national radio services, and that's your 1Extras, your Radio Ones, your 5Lives, your local radio, Asian network, 6Music, those kind of things. And then we have, not your local network, sorry, 5Live, 5Live Extra. Then you have the nation's services, so radio services in the nations again, and we have 7 of those. So in Scotland, we've got Radio Scotland. Then we've got Radio Nine Gael. In Wales, we've got Radio Wales, Radio Cymru, and Radio Cymru 2. And then in Northern Ireland, we've got Radio Ulster and Radio Foyle. And they all broadcast in English and the language of the nation. Then we come over to the local radio services in England, Jersey, and Guernsey. So again, like I said, I'm in the Midlands. So for me, it's Radio WM. And then finally, we have our digital platforms. So things like the main BBC homepage, the BBC iPlayer, where you can watch all TV content and also watch back all TV content. BBC Sounds, where you can hear all of our radio content across the BBC, including podcasts and plays. And so, for example, if I wanted to, I could listen to Radio Cymru through BBC Sounds as well. And then you've got things like the BBC News page, the BBC Sports page, the BBC Weather, CBBC Online, CBBS, and the red button. And this slide is actually really apropos to the webinar today, because actually all of that is production, which you will get to hear about shortly. So one of the things we do at the BBC, the slides which I just showed you, actually really reflects what I call the BBC iceberg. It's the content we put out and what we as the audience see. But it doesn't give a true reflection of all the different types of careers that we have at the BBC and all the different types of roles and jobs we do. So everything is not just in front of the camera. But our apprenticeships have an equal spread, so we do try and reflect that. So we have apprenticeships in journalism, we have apprenticeships in production, but we also have apprenticeships in business, digital technology and data, and engineering. As well as the different types of schemes that we also have apprenticeships in different levels to suit people's paths and where they are in their learning. So everything from a level 3 scheme, which is the equivalent to A levels, all the way up to a level 7, which is the equivalent of postgraduate master's degree. But like I said, we're talking all things apprenticeships. So I'm now going to hand over to Nicola, who will talk you through the schemes.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alison. And as Alison kindly said at the top, I'm one of the scheme specialists in the team. So along with my colleagues, Pamela and Vic, I run the BBC Production Apprenticeship scheme. So it's one of the longest running and largest schemes here at the BBC. We do like to think it's the best as well, but don't tell anyone else I told you that. So in terms of an overview of the scheme, which is open for recruitment at the moment, this scheme will start in September 2026. You must be over 18 or when the apprenticeship starts and be eligible to work in the UK full-time for the duration of the apprenticeship contract. There will be more eligibility information on the advert. So if you do have any specific eligibility questions, please do contact our recruitment team who will respond back to you directly about that. But you should be able to find all the eligibility information in the advert. In terms of the scheme, the duration of the production apprenticeship scheme is 13 months. So it will run from September 2026 until approximately October 2027. And you'll be on a fixed term contract for the duration of the scheme. So between for those 13 months, you'll be on a fixed term contract. And just to give you an idea, there are 3 main elements to the apprenticeship scheme. So the first is the qualification. So you'll be working and studying towards a level 3 production qualification with one of our learning providers, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But as well as working towards your qualification, you'll also be on placement in a production environment here at the BBC. So depending on your chosen placement area, so for example, you could be working in TV, or you could be working in radio, or you could be working in digital or technical area. As Alison's slide shows, there's a huge scope to working in production here at the BBC. As well as that, you'll also receive internal BBC production skills training, and that's where you'll learn about the production processes and also learn content creation skills here. We also support you with employability training towards the end of the scheme as well. So we have huge amounts of opportunities available across the UK. So we talked about opportunities in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England. So really hope that there's opportunities available near you, because there are so many different sites around the UK. So please do take a look at the adverts. We do recommend that you take your time to have a look through each advert and look at the placement summary, which tells you exactly what that department does. So don't just look at the titles of the placements, because that doesn't always give much away and it doesn't give you much detail. So it's really important that you read through the adverts, and this should help you decide which placement you'd like to apply for, because you might want to think about your interests, passions, things you enjoy doing. Maybe you've got hobbies, things you like to be involved with that sort of align quite well with some of the placements. So please do have a look at those and read them in detail to help you decide. Some of the adverts also have hyperlinks included in them, which link to the sort of work of the department, and that'll just give you an additional insight into the work of the department. So do your research and have a look which one is the most suitable for you. And once you've decided on which placement you're going to apply for, you can read through the placement summary, and the information within the advert should really help you to answer the application questions as well. And then in terms of what we're looking for in our production apprentices, it's mainly a sort of curiosity for how we make our content and a willingness to learn, because as you'll see on the screen now, we've got a qualification list of the different areas and the qualification that you'll be studying towards with our learning provider. So the qualification is a level 3 qualification, and as you can see on the screen, or an SCQF7 if you're in Scotland. And the qualification is very similar across each of the nations, but it will vary depending on which nation you're in terms of the learning provider that you'll be studying with. So the qualification could cover areas such as learning about audiences, how production teams work, content making in audio and video, as well as skills to equip you for a career in production at the BBC and the wider creative industry beyond the scheme. So for apprentices based in England and Northern Ireland, you will be if you were lucky enough to get one of those positions, you'd be working with Bauer Academy, and it's a mixture of online and face-to-face delivery. You'd be working towards the production assistant screen and audio. Following that standard. In Wales, the learning provider is Skill Cymru, and you'll be working towards a creative media level 3 apprenticeship qualification. And for apprentices in Scotland, you'll be working with Glasgow Kelvin College, which could be either online or face-to-face, and you'll be working towards the SCQF7 apprenticeship qualification. So that's a quick overview of the scheme, but I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Pamela, who's going to tell you a little bit more.
Thank you, Nicola, and hello everybody. As mentioned at the top, I am one of the other scheme specialists that works on the production scheme with Nicola and Vic. So it is lovely to see you all join, and so many of you join. I am loving all the reactions as well. I'm seeing the emojis coming up, which is fabulous, so please keep them going. The next part here is going to be the panel discussion with our lovely, wonderful current apprentices. So we've got 4 apprentices that have kindly joined us this evening to give you a bit of an insight into their apprenticeship and how they've been getting on so far. Now, before we dive into some questions, I'm going to quiz them all, don't you worry. But first of all, why don't we just do a quick round of introductions of who you are, where you're based, and what department that you're in, and just a quick overview of what you do on your apprenticeship. So, Sophia, why don't we go to you first?
Hi, I'm Sophia. I am based in Cardiff. So there's 2 locations in Cardiff. There's one in town and there's one in the Bay. So I'm based in the one in the Bay, and I am the costume apprentice. So at the moment I'm working on Casualty. Just a little show, you might have heard of it. But I will also be working on Poblicum, which for any people who don't know what that is, it's a Welsh drama.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sophia. Izzy, you next.
Hi, I'm Izzy. I'm based across like three different stations. I'm based in Brighton, so I work mainly from Brighton, but I'm also in Kent and London as well. And my placement is with BBC Introducing, which is basically like a music brand, local radio show. And yeah, I get to support grassroots music and do a bunch of amazing things that I can talk about a bit more later.
I am very much looking forward to hearing all about that a little bit later. Thanks, Izzy. Pierre, we got you next.
Hiya, I'm Per. I'm based in Glasgow at Pacific Quay with BBC Scotland. My apprenticeship is the Technical Operator Production Apprenticeship Scheme. So basically, we focus on all things technical. You could specialize in lots of different areas. So first 3 months, what I've had just now, we're doing sort of like speed dating with all of the different departments. So that's news, radio, cameras, so many different things. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the Hoover in the background. It's a bit embarrassing. And then we'll specialize for the next 8 months after that. I'll tell you more afterwards. Thank you.
Brilliant, Pierre. And I can tell you we cannot hear the Hoover. So, and last but certainly not least, we've got Keelan.
Hi, I'm Keelan. I'm based in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I'm doing a production apprenticeship with BBC Audio. Currently working on Radio 4, so mainly speech programs. We can kind of talk about that a bit later as well. But yeah, just kind of working as a production apprentice and having a really good time working on all the shows.
Brilliant. Thank you, Keelan. And yes, we will be coming to you shortly to quiz you all about what you get up to on a day-to-day on your apprenticeship. So before we do actually talk a little bit more about your apprenticeship and what you've been doing on it, obviously you've all been in the position of what many of these candidates and people that are listening in to right now that are hoping to apply for the apprenticeship. And what would be really good is just to get a bit of an insight in terms of what you were doing before the apprenticeship and before you came onto the apprenticeship. So Izzy, why don't I come to you first? What were you doing before you started your apprenticeship?
Yeah, before my apprenticeship, I went to sixth form and I studied drama, sociology, and English at A level. And I was going to apply for university. I had no idea about creative apprenticeships. And I took a year out, not the usual gap year. I wasn't traveling. I was working in a shop to save up some money for uni. And yeah, like to cut a long story short, I basically did a little bit of acting. I worked on this kind of like Christmas advert, which is, I guess, about time for that. And yeah, I met a producer on set and she was a really cool, like fierce woman in charge. And I asked her what her job was and she said she worked in production. And I literally on the train home Googled the word producer and the apprenticeship came up. So it was a bit of a fate situation. And yeah, here I am. No production experience before. So I'll just make that clear. I had literally no experience. I was very green. So yeah, I was very lucky to get my apprenticeship.
Brilliant, Izzy. And I feel like I could go off on a tangent. I want to know more about this Christmas advert as well. It sounds brilliant. Thanks, Izzy. What about you, Keelan? What were you doing before the apprenticeship?
Yeah, so I went to university for I studied like music and audio production, and then straight out of that, I decided to go as like a freelancer. So I was freelancing as like a recording engineer and a music producer. And then I sort of kind of seen this apprenticeship come up, and I was like, do you know what? I kind of fancy, kind of doing a bit of radio, because I'd heard people talking about it before, and I kind of had a vague interest in it. So yeah, so I applied for the apprenticeship, and I'm 3 months in already, and it's going brilliant. Like I know it's really quick.
It's gone really quick, far too quick. Brilliant. Thank you, Keelan. And what about yourself, Per? What were you doing?
Okay, so graduated uni last year. Yeah, everyone's got such different journeys. You'll hear it. And yeah, so for me, it's last year graduated uni at Edinburgh Napier doing film. Then I went sort of back to my hospitality roots from over the years. So went back to a hotel that I'd worked in before. Was quite fed up of that come Christmas, wanted to get back to something creative. So quit that. Then was applying for jobs every day, and I kept looking at different companies I might want to work for, and then I saw the apprenticeship for BBC, applied for that. Took a while for it to hear something because there's just so many applicants. So I got a job with a lifeguarding, I guess you'd say, company in Edinburgh. And yeah, so over my time while I was lifeguarding, I was like doing the different steps for my apprenticeship application. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to say, Per, it is quite a long process, isn't it, in terms of the application?
Yeah.
Which is something, just to say to anyone on the call here, is it is quite a lengthy process, but bear with it. It's just that we do get lots of applications that come through, and there's a few stages to that, which my colleague Rebecca will go through later on. But thank you, Per, for that. And last, but certainly not least again, was Sophia.
So I, after I finished college, I didn't do A levels. I did a course instead. I moved to Cardiff and has been working in bridal for 2 years. So if anyone's seen Yet Say Yes to the Dress, I basically did that. So and someone would come in and say, I want a wedding dress, and I would help find them a wedding dress, which was amazing. It taught me a lot about body shapes and personal interaction and things. So would highly recommend anyone wanting to get into costume. There's a lot of soft skills you can get for bridal, but also did some training with seamstresses, and I ended up running the TikTok account as well for one of the shops that I worked with for their prom and TikTok, for their prom and bridal TikTok, which was really fun.
Sophia, I want that job. Like, that sounds like the best
It was
job.
amazing, honestly. Like, I still do the part-time there, and yeah, it's good vibes, positive vibes.
Yeah, I seen some reactions coming through, so I think a few people were a fan of that job that you had there. So thank you so much for that, and hopefully that gives you everybody just a bit of a taste of that. Everybody comes onto this apprenticeship from different backgrounds, so this apprenticeship really is open to absolutely everyone, and just something that Izzy touched on just at the just on the beginning of what she was saying as well, is that you do not need to have production experience. We're not looking for experience as part of the apprenticeship. We're looking for potential. We're looking for passion, motivation, and that real curiosity to learn. So now I've got a few more questions to ask, and Per, let's go to you, because let's dive into the apprenticeship a little bit more, because you obviously started with us September, so you were our 2025 cohort. Just as we were saying, Kaelin, time has gone very quick. We're already 3 months in. How's, you started to touch on the kind of areas that you've been doing. How's the first 3 months been going so far?
It's been an absolute whirlwind. It's been every day meeting someone new, doing something different. We've got a week in each different department, in all the technical areas, and we've also been getting to do a bunch of outside broadcasts. We call it OB. So last weekend I was at the Natrads, which is traditional Scottish dancing, and also got to see the Scottish BAFTAs backstage, and I don't know, it's really, really fun, and everyone's been really, really friendly. So yeah, sorry, I got a bit sidetracked there, but yeah, so each different department each week, sort of just to get a feel of what everyone does. And then actually tomorrow, I'm going to be meeting my line manager, and we'll be talking about what I would like to do. So what I would be specializing in come January to October next year, so that we can then hopefully be operational. Yeah.
That's great. Has there been any surprises since you started? Anything that you've been pleasantly surprised with when starting working at the BBC?
I don't know if I said this already, just everyone being super welcoming and friendly. I thought it was joining the BBC, obviously the prestige that comes with that, but everyone is happy to speak to you and happy to help you, and is rooting for you as well.
Good. I'm glad that you feel that, and that's certainly what we want to capture for anyone coming onto the apprenticeship, is to feel the support. And the apprenticeships are well liked across the BBC by teams. The talent that we get through the apprenticeships, including our 4 apprentices here, has been fantastic. So I'm really glad to hear that, Per, that you felt that so early on in your apprenticeship. And I'm very keen to hear what's the next kind of few months are going to pan out for you. I'm going to be quizzing you later on about that. if we go over to Keelan, so you're obviously based over in Belfast, and do you want to? I know a question that we get quite a lot is like, what is the day to day like on the apprenticeship? Obviously, you started in September as well, like Per.
Yeah.
Like, but could you give us a bit of an insight in terms of your team, what a day to day does look like for you?
Yeah, so like I said at the start, I'm with BBC Audio, and I'm mainly working on a show at the moment called Pick of the Week, which is a Radio 4 show that kind of goes out every Sunday, 6:15, if I remember that correctly. And so like it's there is no like every day is different. You know, you get to do like so much like different exciting things. Like for example, like today, I had to like, you chase up producers, so like emailing producers and trying to get programs, and then you'll like get a hold of those programs and you like edit them down into like smaller clips and stuff. So that could be one day, and then another day, like Pierre said earlier, I might be out on an outside broadcast. So I was at one there a couple of weeks ago in the Ulster Hall, where I got to like help out and watch the Ulster Orchestra like perform live for Radio 3, which was super fun.
Fantastic. I'm loving the things that you are already doing, and it's literally 3 months in. I'm very jealous. Thank you, Keelan, for that. And Sophia, you're obviously part of the cohort actually that Keelan and Per is, in terms of you started in September as well. As part of the apprenticeship, there will be training that apprentices get as part of that. And I know recently, Sophia, you had our BBC Academy training boot camp that we like to call. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and share that with those that are listening in?
Absolutely. So they do put them all around the UK. I obviously went to the one in Cardiff. So the boot camp was for a week, and it was fab because there was people traveled from different areas of the UK. So that was really nice to meet apprentices that I've not met with before. Make some new faces, make some friends, make some networking.
Very important.
But yeah, so that was fab. So within that boot camp, then there was kind of like 3 things within that. So for the first 2 days, we had basically someone who was a researcher come in, tell us a bit about like the general industry and the different roles and kind of what that means in production. So from like the very top to the very bottom, which was really interesting. So and then we learnt a bit about what a researcher does. Again, really interesting. I think when I kind of first heard about what the structure was, it was a bit like, oh, well, that doesn't apply to costume. But it actually definitely does. When you work in film and TV, and I'm assuming audio too, you're part of a bigger picture. So it was really interesting to find out about all the different kind of parts and kind of where you slot into that. And also, I think knowing how to research and different ways to research is something that everybody can benefit from. So I took a lot away from that, a lot more than I thought. And then so we did that for the first 2 days. The second 2 days, then we split into 2 groups. So we split into audio and then film and TV. So the audio guys, I believe, hosted like a little podcast radio show. I was in the film and TV group where we were trained by someone called Andrew Fettis, who is fabulous. He's worked on Top Gear, like he's big name. So it was really cool to meet him. And he basically showed us how to make a short film. So we did storyboarding. We had a brief, but then we were like, okay, what do we actually want to do with this brief? We also learned how to use cameras. So it was a very short course on just basics, how to do these things. What do these words mean that you hear kind of flung about on set? And then we made a short film, we edited it and everything. So we worked in a little group, which was so fun. So and then for the last day, then we did a social media course. And that was fab as well. So we did a bit of theory and a bit of practical as well. So we kind of talked a bit like how to make a video, and then they sent us off to make a little TikTok video. And then they kind of talked us through, okay, how do you caption it? How do you hashtag it and things? So yeah, it was really interesting. I learned a lot more than I thought I would. And even though it wasn't specific to my department, it was still probably one of the best weeks I've had. Just, it was so great to interact with all the other apprentices and learn just what everybody else does as well.
Yeah, I think that it's we certainly kept you busy that week, Sophia. I'm sure you had a well-rested weekend after that intense boot camp week that we had. But it's really good, just in terms of you touching on like getting to meet the other apprentices, because you'll see that we have opportunities across the whole of the UK, and it's great like when we have training opportunities that's across for all of the apprentices actually on this panel, get the opportunity to come together and to meet other apprentices and to see what they're doing, because hopefully you're getting from this webinar is that everybody on there's a wide range of different placements on offer on this apprenticeship, and that's why it's really worth, on Nicola's point that she mentioned earlier, is really make sure that you look into the advert and really read in terms of the description of that department, because it does vary quite a bit. But no, that's great, Sophia. I'm glad that you had a fun week. And then Izzy, you have been on the apprenticeship a bit longer than the others. Can you give us just share some of your highlights? Have you got a highlight from the last year from your apprenticeship?
Yeah, I've got so many highlights. I was really trying to think what would be the best thing to talk about, but for me, it was definitely when I got to work at Reading Festival. So working for Music Introducing music brand, and the whole kind of ethos behind that is supporting grassroots local talent, getting them local radio play, and then you can push that radio play to a national level. And a part of my job is suggesting musicians and artists and bands that might be good for festival stages. And within, like, we had an internal competition between all of the music introducing apprentices, because we're dotted all across the UK. And yeah, I won the competition alongside my fellow apprentice Riley. And we had so much fun. They basically sent us to Reading. We worked as runners, content creators. Like, the whole pitch that we made that won was kind of a two-part Instagram, like not series, like two reels, which was Riley and I going head to head to cross off all of like the classic festival things, like going on a ride, seeing the headliner. And it was just the best opportunity, because it was networking every, like, 24/7, because you're showing up to the stage, you're meeting managers, artists, you're learning about liaison, and then you've got the not so glamorous bit, which is like me getting everyone's lunches, so all of the crew filming TV, but it was just the best experience getting to work on a national festival. So yeah, that was definitely like the highlight of my apprenticeship.
We're seeing quite a lot of reaction for that. Clearly, maybe some fans of Reading Festival. What a competition to win, is it? Like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so lucky, so lucky.
Fantastic. Working, but I'm sure a lot of fun to be had during that. So thank you, Izzy, for sharing that. Now, obviously, we all know why we're on this webinar. We're here to be promoting the Production Apprenticeship Scheme. It's gone live, which is very, very exciting. And I'm sure many of you on this call are hopefully looking to apply for one of our places on the apprenticeship. So my last question before we wrap up for the four of you is what tips, best advice that you can give to anyone applying for the apprenticeship scheme? And I'm going to go to Keelan. Let's go for you first. What advice or top tips would you give?
I think for me anyway, it's just be yourself. It's worked out really well for me. Like, for instance, doing something like this, I would never have seen myself doing something like this like a year ago, and just the apprenticeship has like helped me feel comfortable and confident. So yeah, just definitely like be yourself, and don't be afraid to ask, like, what if you think it's a silly question. There are no silly questions.
Couldn't agree with you more. There is no such thing as a silly question on it. And yeah, totally agree with you. Be yourself, be your authentic self on the application. We're not looking for a certain type of person on this apprenticeship at all. So really bring all your personality to that application. So yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that, Kaelin. Izzy, I've seen you nodding away there. You were agreeing with there. Anything else to add to that in terms of any part of the kind of recruitment application process? Any advice?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's still the same, but part of my application process was coming up with a pitch at the end, which I had to pitch to actually the two presenters who I ended up working with throughout my apprenticeship. And I would say to not be afraid to just be creative. I think putting your ideas out there can feel really vulnerable. And I remember when I was applying, I was 18, so I was very fresh and I just had to give it a go. I knew I had no experience. I was on the call and I saw people with 10, 20 years more experience than me, like in the last round of applications. And I think what gave me the edge to get it was the fact that I was just confident in my ideas. I really knew if they asked me a question about it, I had my response ready. So yeah, it's just being locked into pop culture, really locked into what you're applying for specifically, like radio's obviously mine. And yeah, just deliver it with a smile and don't be afraid, because the worst thing that someone can say about your idea is no.
Brilliant. Thank you, Izzy, for that. Per, have you got anything to add there?
Yeah. You guys are coming up with such great stuff. Basically kind of what I was trying to say before in terms of like the wait time, just cause there's so many people who are applying, don't like lose hope that you haven't heard anything. Like you will hear something eventually. Like I remember I had accepted, I was like, I don't know. And then it's all worked out kind of thing. In terms of like preparing, I know for my one, it was a little bit different to yours, Izzy. At the end, we had a sort of news reel, I guess, like a story that we had to do, and then the interview as well. And then we'd also look at like team scenarios. And it's kind of just like to prepare yourself for each thing. So I really enjoyed the creative bit, but I had to like allocate my time to make sure that I was also like prepped for the interview, like allocating as much of your like focus to each point. Yeah, and also just have fun. Like we're all there to have a good time. And they will like see that if you're having a good time, like at the interviews as well. Yeah.
I'm glad you said have fun, because it is. We do want you to have fun as much as possible and just give it your absolute all. I know it can be really nerve-wracking going into whether there's an application or into, as you said, like the interview process there, Per, but really like everybody here is rooting for you to do well. I know that that's something we spoke about, Per, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. No, and they just, yeah, they like they're sorry, my words today are not working, but like the different things that you've done in your life will all be different transferable skills. So like what we're saying that we're all coming from different backgrounds is just because you maybe haven't done film or TV or production. You're like the people who are looking at what you're doing will be looking for your potential. Like I know we've got like every like different location has different people who will be looking after you. So I know if you're going to apply for Scotland, we don't have something at PQ right now, but we've got ones at Stornoway and in Aberdeen. And I can tell you that my line manager is absolutely incredible, as are all the people here on the panel too. But yeah, they'll be looking after you, and they like when you apply, if you've had the no, you can always try again. Like there's people who've gotten it like after multiple tries. And yeah, I know that the people who are picking who gets it are still rooting for the people who don't. Like if they could give everyone a job, they would. Yeah, that would be my thoughts on that.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Per. And Sophia, what about yourself? Any further tips, advice to build on?
I would definitely say just show your passion. I think that is one of the main reasons that I got the apprenticeship. And it's because I just showed my passion, and every single thing I did, we had to do like video interviews, like pre-recorded and obviously in person. And I just was like, oh my goodness, please let me in, like the whole time, because this is what I've wanted to do for so long. And I think I showed that, and that really read off well. But just to build off what a couple of the other guys have said, is being yourself is so important. I know it's really like, oh yeah, of course, but even if you just look at me and then the apprentice who of last year, she's called Abby, we are so different, but we both got the apprenticeship because we have different things that we bring to the table. And then in the application process, just because a couple of people have mentioned it, we had to do actually an in-person practical assessment, which I had no idea. Literally, I was showing up blind on the day. Like, all I know is I have to be here and I have to have myself, and we'll see where it goes. So that was really scary. But again, just show up, try to be confident, ask questions, like just don't be afraid to make yourself known. So yeah, I would say a little tip if you are thinking of applying to the costume one is learn a little bit about costume breakdown. It's something that I had no idea about. I won it, and thankfully it was okay. But yeah, I would say if you don't know anything about costume breakdown, it's basically if I'm making this sleeve bloody, what do I do to make it bloody? I would say that would be little top tip for costume specific apprentices. And my last thing, sorry, is if you are on the fence of applying, just apply. I was convinced every time I had an email, I was like, right, this is it. And look at me now. So I would say if you're on the fence, just do it. The worst thing, they say no, and you apply again next year.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sophia, for that. And I think I'm just looking at the time there. That is us up for the panel discussion. Thank you so much to Izzy, Sophia, Per, and Kaelin. We've seen lots of reactions from everybody on the webinar, which is brilliant. I'm sure that you'll all have found that really useful, a real insight into the range of placements that we have and the experiences that our apprentices have on their apprenticeship. So thank you to the four of you for joining. That's everything for the panel discussion. I'm now going to hand over to the lovely Rebecca, who's now going to talk more about the application side of things. So over to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Pamela. So there's been lots of questions, obviously, about the application process. So I'll just run you through this quickly. So obviously stage 1 is the online application. So that's the stage you're at now, where you're filling in your online application. Then we've got our online assessments. So there's 2 online assessments, and I'll go through more detail in that in a minute. One of them is like a video interview platform. It's not live, so you'll kind of record your videos and submit them. And then we've got our assessment centre, which is our 4th stage. So I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute, but essentially that's a day where you join us, normally virtually, and we go through some exercises. And then obviously, if you're successful, we'll offer you to join us in September 2026. So I'll talk a little bit more about the online application, and this is where we assess your eligibility for the scheme and learn a bit more about your motivation for applying for the production scheme. So it's really important, as Nicola said, just to take your time reviewing the job advert. One, to make sure you meet the eligibility criteria, but also just to make sure you're applying for the right placement and that the placement that you're most interested in. You're only able to submit at 1 application per scheme. So make sure that you are picking that placement that you are most interested in. It's really important that you read any of the eligibility questions as well for the application really carefully, because a lot of the time people accidentally say they've been kind of made redundant from the BBC or things like that, and that results in automatic disqualification. So just make sure you're checking your application thoroughly. You won't need to submit a CV or cover letter. We'll just ask you a couple of questions on the application, but make sure you're checking that before you submit it. Okay, so then we have our online assessment, which is Capfinity. So if you're eligible for the scheme, you'll be invited through to this stage. This assessment focuses on our values and behaviours, as well as kind of essential skills for being a production apprentice. So this means we're looking at kind of your strengths, so the things that you enjoy doing and the things that you do well. And it just allows us to understand your preferences as an individual. So once you complete this assessment, you'll receive feedback within 48 hours. So you get a feedback report from this assessment. And this also confirms that you have completed the assessment as well. So you'll get that within 40 hours of completing. What I do want to say as well, just around this, obviously, once you get the invitation, we'll send out all the support materials to help you with the assessment. So if this feels a bit daunting right now, we do send out a lot of materials to help support you. And obviously anything like reasonable adjustments or support that you might need during this stage, we obviously make sure that you're able to contact us and we're able to put those in place for you. Okay, so if you're successful in that stage, you'll then be invited to take part in our video interview, which is a platform called HireView. So again, this process gives you an opportunity to talk about your strengths and your motivation for obviously applying for the production scheme, but also the contributions that you hope to make to the team that you're applying for. So really think about the team that you've applied for at this stage and tailor your answers to that specific team. So if it's local radio, obviously think about local radio kind of in your answers as opposed to kind of filming for TV and production content. So make sure you're tailoring it to the placement. And this will involve kind of 3 to 4 questions. It will be either a video or a written response that you can submit. And as I said before, just really think about the team that you're applying for in those responses. You'll have about 10 minutes to prepare for the assessment, and then it's normally about 1 minute and 30 seconds to record your video response. And I know it can seem like a little bit daunting to record a video on a platform, but you can re-record it as many times as you need to. So it's not that you just have one shot and then that's it. You have to submit it. You can re-record it as many times as kind of you need to feel comfortable. But I would say don't overdo it, because I think sometimes I get a bit like, oh, I want it to be perfect. But actually, as we said before, we want like your authentic self to shine through. So a bit of a balance between like getting it where you're happy with it, but also letting your personality shine through. So the team who the placement will be based with will be looking at those answers, and they'll be assessing all of the videos and the written answers that you submit. If you're successful in that stage, you'll be taken through to our assessment centres. So as I said before, these are usually held virtually, and there'll be a welcome session, a group exercise, and then an interview with the team. And again, this is a chance to obviously demonstrate the skills that you've got, collaborate with others, and show your passion for the BBC and obviously the particular role that you've applied for. So there might be a pre-assessment task ahead of your assessment centre, and we'll send this well in advance so you've got enough time to prepare. And you're usually asked to kind of discuss this at interview. So it's normally something that the interviewers will go through with you, and they'll obviously ask you questions about your task that you've prepared. We'll then obviously have the welcome session. This is usually held in the morning. And this just gets you, allows you to meet the team and gets a chance for you to meet your fellow candidates as well and just hear more about the day and the plan for the day. And obviously any questions you've got, we can answer those in the welcome session. And then we'll have a group task where you'll get to work collaboratively with the other candidates. It's normally a scenario-based task that we'll present to you. And this is just a chance, obviously, for you to show how you communicate and share your ideas. And then you'll have an interview, which is normally in the afternoon. And then obviously that's a bit more where you can tailor your specific strengths and motivations for applying. Obviously, the team just want to understand what motivates you, what drives you, why the opportunity excites you. So really think about those answers to why you actually want to do the apprenticeship and why you want to do that particular role. And think of examples as well to support some of your answers. So times where you've worked well in a team and things like that. So if you have been successful in the assessment centre, We will then offer you to start in September 2026. The team will be in touch with you throughout the summer, obviously, to get you ready for the role starting in September. I did want to say, obviously, we do get a lot of applications, so it is quite a competitive process, but we do have a lot of apprentices who are successful on their second, sometimes even third time. So I do appreciate, whilst obviously not everyone can get through, I do want to reiterate, if you've applied before, we had a couple of questions in the chat about can people apply again. So yeah, if you've applied before, you can absolutely apply again this year, and obviously you can use your learnings and the feedback that you got from the previous recruitment process to improve the process this time and kind of demonstrate your learnings and things like that. So just wanted to reiterate that, because I know obviously when it's a competitive process that can sometimes put people off, but you can learn a lot from going through the process. And as I said, we've got apprentices who have been successful, you know, on kind of multiple times of coming through.
Cool. Thank you so very much, Rebecca and Pamela, the apprentices, and Nicola. So we're going to have a couple minutes for questions. There have been a flood of questions. Thank you so much. And we hope that some of them have been answered with everyone talking. I just want to go through this about our diversity and how we can support people, because it has been a recurring question that I've seen in the Q&A. So we are very proud to be a disability confident employer. So if you require any kind of reasonable adjustments before you even fill in the application, you can have a conversation with Rebecca and their team and talk confidentially about what kind of support you need. And that support will follow you through the application process. And if you're successful, it will then follow you throughout your time at the BBC. So please don't sit there thinking, oh, you know, this sounds fantastic, but I couldn't do this apprenticeship because of, and then whatever your because of is. The BBC, diversity does matter to us at the BBC. If you think about it, we're an organisation that's supposed to be representing the whole of the UK. We can't do that if we're all the same. If we've all come from the same backgrounds, had the same start in life, had the same experiences, gender, race, colour, you know, and everything else in between, especially if you're neurodivergent or anything like that, that shouldn't matter, because that just adds to the BBC and all the different perspectives, so we can then better represent our audiences. So please, like I said, if you have any questions about the application process, because you're neurodivergent or you're disabled, I've seen some questions about accessibility in our BBC offices. They're very accessible, so don't let that put you off. And then I just want to show you these two QR codes. And once I've stopped sharing this presentation, I will put the links in the chat whilst we go through some questions. The one on the left-hand side is where you can have the confidential conversation with the TA team, so talking about any reasonable adjustments that you need. And then the QR code on the left-hand side is our FAQs, and there's a wealth of information in our FAQs, including a video, even though Rebecca's done a fabulous job talking about the application process, but there's a video in there as well that goes through the application process and all sorts of different tidbits and pieces of information. But, you know, the one thing I hope that you've taken away from this is that, you know, everyone is different. Everyone has their own journey and their own story, and we're embracing that. And then the final QR code to the early careers page where the schemes are open. You can also follow us at BBC Getting on Instagram, and you'll see lots of videos from our apprentices, and then also at Life of the BBC on TikTok, where you get kind of insight into the BBC as an organisation as a whole, including apprenticeships. This webinar is being recorded, so it would be on our Life at the BBC YouTube channel. So many channels. So you'll be able to watch that and any other webinars we have as well, including a webinar specifically about BBC Extend apprenticeships. We do have some Extend schemes in this production scheme, and it's the same production scheme that we've spoken about today, but extend apprenticeships are places that have been ring fenced specifically for people who are deaf, disabled, and neurodivergent. So take a look at those as well, even though you can apply for any and every scheme that we have available. So I'm going to stop the share. I know Rebecca, Tors, myself, and Nicola, I think, have been trying to answer as many questions as possible, but there have been loads coming up. Rebecca, are there any groups of questions that you want to call out and get someone to answer?
Yeah, I would definitely say a failure on my part that I didn't mention when people can expect to know if they're successful by. So we've had a few questions, understandably, in that area, and they will know by the start of May if they've been successful. So our assessment centres will take place throughout April. And we'll be able to update candidates whether they've been successful in May. So as Alison said, I know it's quite a long process, but obviously we need to go through those stages. So we allow for the timelines for that. And over summer, the schemes team and the team that you'll be working with will look after you to make sure you're ready for September.
Sorry, I was on mute there trying to find the links. Any other questions? I've seen a lot of questions of people asking they've gone to university, and it does say in the wording that the scheme isn't aimed at graduates. Nicola, Pamela, Rebecca, so does that mean people who have gone to uni can't apply? What does that mean? Nicola?
Sorry, Rebecca was about to answer, so I sort of stopped. I paused, apologies. I was just going to say, yeah, it's a level 3 scheme. So I think when Alison, you talked about the levels earlier, it's equivalent to approximately A level. So that's the level of scheme that the production apprenticeship is. But as you will have heard when Pamela was interviewing our wonderful current apprentices, people come from all people come from different backgrounds and have found different routes into the scheme. So you may be eligible to apply. Please do check the eligibility criteria. So you are eligible to apply, but if you have got specific eligibility questions, please do direct them to the recruitment team, because there may be nuances in terms of qualifications, but you are eligible to apply. And as I think we mentioned earlier, we have a couple of people who are graduates, but as it is a level 3 scheme, there is no expectation for you to have that kind of academic background when you apply to the scheme. Rebecca, did you want to add anything? Sorry, because I jumped in.
No, not at all. Absolutely perfect. We've had quite a few as well on the other side, kind of asking if there's any age limits for the apprenticeship. So there isn't an upper age limit. You do need to be 18 by September 2026, but no, there's no upper age limit for the apprenticeships.
I think.
Sorry, Alison, I was just going to jump in there and just let you know that we have had apprentices who've been in their 50s as well. So, we have lots of people who are career changers. So when we talk about people who've had different journeys and different routes into the industry, there's people who've worked before in all kinds of industries before arriving on the scheme. So, that's not a barrier.
Cool, excellent. That's what I was going to say. So we're on the same page there. Nicola, I saw one, and then I think Rebecca or Tors has answered it. Lots of people are asking, because there are so many different locations, Nicola and Pamela, some people are asking about the different opportunities. So if you say you apply and you're on the BBC introducing scheme in a location, does that mean you can't move around and do any other placements? Are you in that place for the 13 months?
Yeah, so you're applying for the placement area, and yeah, you'll be there for the 13 months. There may be opportunities during the apprenticeship to get some shadowing opportunities in other areas. The teams are really supportive and want apprentices to really get a breadth of experience, which you will get on the placement area that you're in. But yeah, you will be there for the 13 months. But as I said, there may be opportunities to get a taster in other areas throughout your time with us.
Cool. And our apprentices, they do get to do all sorts of wonderful things, no matter what schemes are on. So, was it last year we had Eurovision? We had a whole heap of apprentices from all across the business taking part in different things in that. So different types of opportunities like that do come up that you can then volunteer for. And I'm future plugging. I work in the outreach department, so I'm always asking volunteers to, or I was asking apprentices to volunteer with us. So I've now got to the stage where I'm asking potential apprentices that they have to volunteer with me before they even get into the BBC. This is the level of my craziness.
It's best to start early, Alison. It's best to start early.
Can turn it into one of the application questions, I think. As an apprentice, would you volunteer specifically with Alison Outreach? And say yes. Cool. I think we're at 7 o'clock. Wow, that time went quicker than I thought it was going to. If we haven't answered your question, apologies, and please use the contact forms or the links to speak to TA if any of your questions are about eligibility, or please do check out the FAQs because that will answer a lot of questions as well. I just want to say thank you very much to our truly fantastic panel. Obviously, I am non-biased and every webinar has been fantastic, but this is our last webinar before Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. So I'm going to say that you've been our best Christmas webinar and try and keep in favor with everybody else that I work with in the early careers team. So going off my screen, Sophia, Nicola, Rebecca, Per, Vic, Izzy, Kaylin, Tors, I think I've pronounced your name wrong, sorry, Kaylin, and Pamela, thank you so very much. Everyone who's watching, best of luck in your applications, and Merry Christmas and all the best for a successful, healthy and happy 2026. Take care, people. Have a good evening. Bye.